Hello everyone, welcome to another GT3 track guide. This time we're at Fuji for the GT Sprint Series. Back in the Merc using the fixed setup, and like always I'll show the uninterrupted lap first and then we'll get into the guide. So for the turn 1 hairpin, I'm looking at the 150 board and more or less I'm braking just after it. I'm using all the curb on the entry and I'm braking on that as well. Ideally you want to be on power like just as you approach this bollard here. You can cut a little bit more of the curb than I did. Didn't really seem to make too much of a difference for me. And on exit, just make sure you don't go past the red and white curb and you'll be fine. For this quick right hand or left-hander, my braking point is in between the 50 and the 100 board, and there's this little yellow sign right in the middle, which is kind of a perfect reference for me. I'm using the curb on the entry again, and I'm keeping it in 4th gear. Not braking too hard, about 30-40%. You can cut a bit more of this apex curb than I did. Although if you kind of touch this bollard though, you can get the slowdown, so just be careful. And as long as you keep the left tires on the red and white curb, you'll be fine. And for the next sequence here, you won't have time to prepare this corner, so I'm just staying to the right. And as I'm approaching this white line in the grass up ahead, I begin slowly lifting off of the throttle. A little bit of brake here, like 4%. The trick here is you just really want to have as minimal input as you can. You don't want to be like pushing the throttle on and off. You just want to keep the car balanced, really. Because ideally you don't want to run to the left. You want to be able to bring the car back to the right-hand side. The next corner leads to a pretty decent straight, so you want to prioritize the exit for that one. And my reference point for braking is that little yellow sign before the 50, trying to use all the curb again while I'm braking. Ideally, you want to be back on power before this yellow anti-cut, which this one you can easily just cut over, no issue. Once again, keeping left side tires on the red and white curb. And for the chicane, there's quite a few references for braking. You can use the big Dunlop sign or the 100 board, which is what I end up using. Pretty much right as I'm in line with it, that's when I begin braking, using all the curb once again on the left here. You really want to cut a lot of this curb here because it'll make the next part of the chicane much easier with the positioning of the car. And to prepare the next part here, I'm just doing a complete lift, and then right as I get back on the power, I short shift in a second. It really helps with the traction in the Mercedes, I found. And I haven't really tested it with other cars, but with the Merc, you can pretty much easily cut over this yellow curb, although you might have to experiment with other cars to see if you can do the same. And for this corner up here, there's a kind of a faded line on the left-hand side by this green AstroTurf. That's my reference for braking here. Braking kind of gently, not too hard. And you want to make sure you're cutting all of this curb all the way to the bollard here. Now on the exit, do not hit these yellow anti-cuts. They send the car flying. And for the next corner, kind of tricky because it's sort of blind in a way. I'm braking after I pass this curb on the left. Once again, super important, you're cutting this curb all the way to the bollard. And avoid these anti-cuts once again. And for the final corner, I'm trying to bring the car as much as I can to the left here. And I'm really delaying my downshift to second gear. Kind of a tricky with traction here as well, so just be careful with that. But yeah, you want to make sure you're on the power well before this curb. And you can just about nick these yellow anti-cuts here. However, if you go over the middle of them, they'll send the car flying. And that's a lap guide for Fuji. Good luck racing this week, and I'll catch you next week.